Nirvana speaks the oracle, and I am saved. Thank you, listener, for memory.
Okay. Well, you're asking me to talk about the phenomenon, the process of channeling, and I'd be glad to. It was interesting. As I was getting ready for this here, I felt very sleepy, tired, lethargic, I was lazy, and I think it's probably because of all the stuff I was doing earlier today, but very often over the years I've found that I'll feel that way just before I'm doing something that I would call the equivalent of channeling. I call it, in my book, I call it open channeling, where there's no entities, or at least they don't identify themselves and I don't notice their presence, but something overshadows and comes through and takes over. It's like Huxley's notion of the reducing valve. There's mind at large in capital letters, and then there's the reducing valve between mind at large and our minds, each our individual's selves and minds. And that reducing valve is usually fairly constricted. But there are times that you can dilate the reducing valve. You can open it up more, and more of mind at large can come through to the local mind, as if you could make them demarcated like islands or something. I don't believe that, but at least figuratively speaking. And that's a metaphor that works very well for me, essentially to characterize my own experience with what I would call channeling. Because it's what this kind of open channeling is overshadowing this coming into me of a diffuse kind of omniscient source, a kind of a consciousness field that enters or overshadows into my consciousness field, so that there's a superimposition of them, and I really speak from that larger consciousness field. That's what it sort of feels like. And the reason I mention that kind of sleepiness is that I also have been working for years as an interdisciplinarian with different theoretical conjectural systems about how everything works, and how God works, really, the whole shebang, the whole unified field theory with heart, with feeling, with soul, with spirit, as well as all the other fermions and hadrons and leptons and whoever the horse rode in on with them. So here, one of my theories is about the fact that we become not only coherent in the sense of brain synchrony or high amplitude, low frequency, cortical bioactivity, but that also there's actually a quantum coherence begins to set in. And we know now that quantum coherence, a quantum coherent state, can occur in a room temperature or brain temperature, possibly, usually on a very small kind of microtubule level, but I think it can be expanded, and it can be a spreading activation of that state. There's a term called a Bose-Einstein Condensate, where a very large, many-bodied system, macro-level thing, not a little micro-level thing, can be permeated throughout itself with being in the state of quantum coherence and quantum resonant throughout itself. So that a single wave function can represent the whole thing, even if it's got trillions of atoms or molecules in it. And that's interesting, and that's hopeful, because in a sense, whether you want to take it as metaphor or literal, each of us can potentially be a Bose-Einstein condensate. Certainly maybe our brains or part of our cortical area or higher functioning can become that way, or a pineal gland or some part of it can become a Bose-Einstein condensate. So why is it important to become quantum coherent, as opposed to the normal garden variety presenting problem state of quantum decoherence? Everything, all the tables and chairs, everything, your bodies, pinch yourself, everything in the physical reality surround is in a quantum decoherent state. It's very hard to find little islands of quantum coherence. But quantum coherence, including early onset experiments with quantum computing, quantum computation, is very interesting, because what happens in a quantum coherent state, whether it's on a very small level or maybe in a large level, like a whole body or whole brain or mind or psychoenergetic system, is that in a quantum coherent state, there is a single wave function that is, in a sense, not yet collapsed, or it's the contents, it's the undifferentiated potentia contents represented by the wave function, which now is representing like your whole person, your whole selfhood, potentially. And I find that very heartening, because as a creative person, as a poet, I very much embrace and have felt earlier in my life experientially as a creative person the being in touch with the infinitude, all potentia. In other words, I didn't know back then, decades and decades ago, that as a poet and as a painter, when I began to be haunted and actually by the realization experientially that I was at the right in the presence chamber of all possibilities, of all creative potentiality, undifferentiated yet, but indirectly intuiting the felt sense, the presence of it right there through that thinnest of membranes. And then all the laborious effort to bring it from a non-spatio-temporal place, a simultaneity, a quantum coherent place where all things, Schrodinger's cats, both alive and dead at the same time, there's all there for the picking, so to speak. The creative person then tries to pick stuff out, or it comes to consciousness, or they just sort of play in the fields of it in intuition and imaginal, subjected, introspective places, and picks a few things out. But as a visual artist, for example, it was frustrating to me because it would take me all day to make a painting or a drawing. You know, very detailed, very careful, and a lot of TLC, a lot of Csikszentmihalyi flow going into it, altered state of consciousness, midwifing this thing from the multidimensional fields of what quantum physics would call phase entangled superposed system of all possibility, of all virtuals. They're not actual yet, they're all virtuals. It's in potentia. It's the fecund womb where all the babies are in there. They're both already made, and they're madeable and makeable, and all the combinatorics of what could make babies is all in there together under the covers together. Lovely incestuous intercourse of all possibilities. The seething Godhead, the polymorphous perverse, the incestual intercourse of all this. I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. So as an artist, I always breathed that and drank from those springs, and usually with enough control that it didn't freak me or other people out. But it was you get little tiny stingy pieces here and there, a poem, a little drawing, a painting, maybe a dance, a piece of music, a little insight, a mental image, a little kind of a videoic scenario that you kind of get in the mind's eye episodically, and it passes. And if you're a filmmaker, you spend $30 million a year of your time to put it in the can. But when you actually can hang out in there and let it kind of flow into you, or you flow into it, for a while and hang out with it, you're on a kind of an inner planes or subjective realm that is higher dimensional. It's simply higher dimensional. More things are happening at once. There's more degrees of freedom. There's more possibilities. And you can actually, I think, take cognition into there. You can actually be a witness of it, and yet it's ineffable usually. It's like being on a drug, a psychoactive state where you are such an altered state that you think you can describe it while you're in it. And you can be able to bring it back without too much loss of translation to describe it, and then you come back and you read what you wrote when you were there, or you hear it on the tape recorder, or you're trying now to encode the multifarious, polymorphous, perverse, superposed infinitude, the plethora, the fecundity, and you bring it in here, and the best of us poets can't do it. So it's you can't do it, and then it gets very frustrating because what do you want to do as a creative person? Kind of in the betwixt and between there, you want to be able to show your friends, your kith and kin, your fellow incarnate, tremendously constrained, fallible, mortal human beings, human spirits in human form as human beings. You would like to have them get a taste of that, and you know it's partly your job because it's been put on your plate, into your heart, into your psyche, into your emotions, into your imagination, into your intuition, into your inspiration that's been given to you to taste of that, and yet you don't want to just self-indulgently do that and then kind of wake up like you went off on a selfish drug trip and had the visions, and then you come back. You actually want to come back like Coleridge and say, you know, the pleasure domes and Kubla Khan. You know, you want to share it, and you want to let people know the good news, the truth that shall set you free, the good news that there really is a higher multidimensional reality in this tremendously constrained physical reductionist consensus reality we are somnambulistically consigned to and propaganding as ourselves to say in place within, and all the policing mechanisms to keep us from taking the drugs or any other damn thing, to wake up from it or to see more degrees of freedom with it, or to put more antennae out there. Good heavens, it's such a shame what we do to ourselves. And so some of us get out on a limb. We could be the martyrs. We could crucify ourselves this way. We could see ourselves as, oh, tough luck, but somebody's got to do it. Or we could actually delight in it, delight in the fields of the Lord, so to speak. What has this got to do with channeling? It's got a lot to do with channeling in the sense that when I would get very sleepy or kind of before a big talk or something, when I knew after doing enough of these things, and I have enough of them that are taped in various ways that one could go to them and see what I'm talking about. This is like what I'm doing now. I get carried away. It's what Csikszentmihalyi would call flow state, what some call clairparlance, what I call in my book clairparlance, which means inspired speech, a hearing with the mind's ear, clairvoyance, clairaudience, I mean, it's clairvoyance with the mind's eye, clairvoyance with clairaudience, hearing with the mind's ear. Clairparlance would be sort of speaking with a higher dimensional tongue, so to speak. And not just simple gobbledygook glossolalia, which would say to anybody, probably, that person is possessed with the spirit, they're possessed, blah, 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 but it is unintelligible. It is possible to be possessed and be intelligible.
The flood will come, but you must not forget the oracle. You can say